Hello, Shay.
Hey, Yvonne.
Oh, where's the time go? I think, we haven't had a chat for a while. So, before we hit the crazy season, we are in the crazy season. Every year I say I'm not ready for this, but what I'm ready for is to examine what we have as a topic, and that is the identity of the I, because what is really obvious to me is that we find it really difficult to say one sentence without mentioning I. I am, I have, I did. It's constant, isn't it? That sound, and we do it. We're so robotic that we don't pay much attention to the I. And what I'd like to discuss with you today is let's pay some attention to the I, because when I say hello, Shay, which I is saying hello to you? Well, for me, my whole work has been about joining the I of the soul and the I of the personality and as one. So more and more, my I is just one. But mostly, we're talking about the personality. We're talking about the persona. And so, it's all about what I, the physical being, does, what I, the physical being, sees, what I, the physical being, believe in, right? It just goes on and on and on and on. And I think when we go into this transition into a consciousness of wholeness, it's really important to examine which I are we talking about. So, one thing that I, the persona, has changed is that when I'm introduced, I never say I am Von. I say my name is Von
Mm-hmm.
because I don't believe that's who I am. I believe that's a role I play at the moment. And I don't say I am an author. Yes, I've written some books. Okay. So it's we attach the I to the doing part of us. And that makes then an identity attachment rather than seeing it as a role we play whilst soul is in this incarnation. So I often say, in fact, it was funny, we're having a chat on the Brave New Life community Zoom, and somebody was talking about uh, I this and me that, and so for me it was like, so which me are we talking about, and which I are we talking about? And they went, what? Well, I was just talking about the physical part of us
Mm-hmm.
because we are so attached to that identity. I know we've talked a lot about self identity and how we identify with the roles that we either have taken on or the roles that we've been given. And one of the things about attachment is that to then make a change, it's really difficult because you have to sever that attachment that you become identified with. Hmm. So, how does all that resonate with you? Which
Yeah, I think it's.
are you?
I love it. No, I really love this conversation too because the I it's such a fascinating concept. And just as you were speaking now, I can kind of see both sides of it, like the polarity of the positive and the negative of the use of the I. Like, for example, I can see how human tendencies to use the I have an attachment to the use of the identity of I am this and this and this and
Mhm.
this. I am Shay. I am man. I am a male. But then in order to transcend the identity of the individual of I am Shay, I have
Mhm.
to have the awareness of letting go of that and moving into a kind of connected, unified perspective of I am you and you are me, essentially, like this unified understanding. of who I am. And so the other end of the spectrum that I see the benefits of using the I am, and I guess the identity of the I in some senses is this association with the ego of the individual of me being Shay. I am Shay. I am a man. I am alive. I'm, the doing and the being. And I mean, with the relevance of this, and I want to use an example from when we've been a part of the Brave New Life community, and we've gone through this process that Sovereign initiated around feeling-based relating. And one thing that I notice in myself is that my default way of communicating, confronting and challenging notions about myself, because it's easy to say I am Shay, but it's difficult to say a negative connotation like I am, I'm ashamed, or I am really upset. And what I notice I do sometimes is that I will say, when you have this experience and you feel really upset that someone didn't accept you, and you go through this journey, when I'm projecting my experience onto someone else by saying you, because I don't want to accept that happened for me and take responsibility and own my own story and my own narrative. So I'll often say it's like, when you go to the shop and then the lady, you go and get your groceries and then she looks at you really funny and she gets upset. Well, that's the story. But the way that I communicate that often when it's my own experience is by saying you, and rather than taking ownership of it and saying I. And so the relevance of that is in healing. I feel it's important that there is an acknowledgement of all parts of the self, of myself, and so even if that looks like the shiny, bright, beautiful parts, and also the dark, dingy, not so nice parts. And often what I notice is that myself and also others, and it's a funny game you can play when you become aware of it and you start listening to other people and how they communicate, what the words that they choose and how they associate with the experience, and taking ownership of it or not, and projecting it onto others. But so from just those two kind of obvious examples, I can see there's a positive and also an attachment and a kind of sort of a negative example of how using or getting stuck, maybe it's getting this stuck in the block of being identifying with solely one individualized kind of letter, I. And that's not to say that I know all, because I actually I don't, and that's why I love this conversation, because we get to explore these deeper notions and concepts around identifying with the I or not. And I'm actually really curious, because we've got a few people tuning in now, how they identify with the I. If you want to leave us a comment, feel free to join us in the conversation. But Yvonne, you did mention before about the Brave New Life community and feeling-based relating. What's my curiosity is, if we have this attachment to an identity of I being, the physical structure that's on the screen, that's breathing and living, what's the biggest concern if that was extrapolated with an intense glue-like structure stuck to the attachment of the I? Is it that we have a disassociation from the connection of all of life around us, and we feel so individualized that we struggle to have empathy for other people and their experience? Or what would you suggest can be a like, if you go down that path and stay very rigid in that form, What's perhaps a positive outlook on that, and also a kind of negative repercussion of that belief?
Well, look, I don't look at negative and positive at all. I just look at what is. So for me, what we're in this period of transformation and transition into having an expanded knowingness of life, of consciousness, and of self. And what I notice that stands in the way often of that expansion is the attachment to the what I call the little I, which is the one that has the identity of the physical being, which is mostly in that state of survival. So what I am always, and when I use the word I, and we use it all the time. I use it all the time. What I have become really concentrated and vigilant about is to make sure that the I that I represent when I speak is the whole I. So it is the I of the personality, although that I actually takes backseat, but it's the I of the energetic life force that I now identify with as me. So it's it's such an interesting, and what I would like to do is I wrote something a long time ago, and I'd like to read a part of that. I use it a lot with my students, and if I may, I'll just read this. It's called "Living from the Inside Out." Thy will is my will, the big I and the little I. Imagine this: that your energy source, your soul, is the big I, and the physical body is the small I. Both have a purpose. The big I's purpose is to express itself into the physical in all its glory. The small I's purpose is to provide the big I with a vehicle to be able to be all it came to be. The confusion starts when the little I, having forgotten the reason for being here, begins to have its own separate agenda, which is mostly based on the need for survival. As where the big I knows that survival is never an issue, as there is no end to energy, only stagnation, constriction, or expansion. In this time of transformation, we are being made more and more aware of the need for the big I to be able to live its purpose, and for the small I to let go of its own small agenda and attain the faith to allow the true purpose for its existence to finally be revealed. The source self has made the decision to birth itself into this place of the physicality for its own very clear purpose. When we can see our physical self as the perfect instrument for the deliverance of this inner potentiality and stand aside for it to be brought to fullness, we will see and experience the miracles possible. To live in an open state where the inner is unencumbered to express its true nature with all its magnificent energetic power, we will begin to see the start of the new human in actuality. To truly be the vessel for this power to flow through and manifest into your reality is the challenge we face on a daily basis. We are on a threshold of the birth of the next phase of human evolution. It is exciting and at the same time terrifying, for within us we know that is what we have signed up for. And there is a constant state of restlessness driving us on. But the outer self, not knowing how or where this is taking us, is constantly putting the brakes on and resisting the inevitable. This incredible metamorphosis of the human species. Trust is the issue here. You may ask, trust in what? Firstly, trust that there is a purpose to all this. Secondly, that there is a part of you that knows. And thirdly, that if you listen and are guided by that part, you can and will live a blessed, fulfilled life experience. So that to me is just, it's all about knowing the inner and the outer self.
I love that, the little I and the big I. It's a great way to see the and distinguish the elements which, we are a part of, but also we are experiencing for ourselves. And yeah, I loved how you were able to articulate, the time and place that we are in now as well, with the
Mhm.
great transition of change, where it seems perhaps the little I has played a quite a large role, significant role in our collective cultural, societal systems. And what we're moving towards now is this bigger I, which is as you said, expanded awareness of our, collective beingness, which is coming into more solidified reality. And the key piece to all of that is having the trust and the faith that, because ultimately what I notice in my life is the little I plays all these stories often
Mhm.
around survival, oh, like I don't have enough food, or I don't have enough money, or I don't have enough this and that and so forth. But then it's like, hang on a second, I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I still got like so much to be grateful for. There's so much in my sphere, like how I'm actually incredibly abundant. Oh my God. And that's the bigger I and the bigger trust that's required to shift to that expanded state. And yeah, I really loved how you shared that beautiful poem as well to help exemplify. It's so cool. And I just wanted to also acknowledge Karina, who's just tuned in, saying, "Hey, dear ones, she's so happy to be here with the two of us,
She
part of
never
the
misses
Brave New
us.
Life community." So good.
When I wrote that, it was fascinating to me because I woke up that morning with the words, "Thy will is my will," in my ears. And I'm very, look, what could almost say anti, except I'm not anti anything, but a religious. And to me, that was a phrase that comes from that arena. And so, but no, it was get up, get a pen, write down. So what I see in that writing, though, is that the saboteur that we are needing to transform so that we can become the whole is the stories you talk about, is that we believe we're not good enough. This thing about the little I is never good enough. There's all these stories about comparison and needing validation and needing approval of and needing all of those things because we're so programmed that we're faulty.
Mm.
And that to me is just such an insult to divine creation
Mm.
because we are divine creation like everything else. We don't look at nature that way. Well, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. No, we accept and appreciate how it is presented, how it is created. But when it comes to humanity, because of our programming by those who want to control, we're never good enough. We're always substandard.
Mm.
And whilst the little I is continuously into this um, constant war with itself of being too tired, of being, not enough, never enough. When, of course, the big I has incarnated itself absolutely perfectly for what its purpose was. But that purpose can't be fulfilled. And so 90% of humans, probably more, live with something in here. I always get this. There's something in here that wants to come out.
Mm. Mhm.
Something in here that we bring, which is the purpose for our incarnation. And so that is constantly, it's either a hole or a boot, and we try to fulfill that or fill it full by eating the wrong things, by having the wrong relationships, by attempting all sorts of occupations and searching and looking and asking and and it's all here waiting.
Mm.
But the little I, the way the analogy that I use is a car. Love driving. So it's like the car is the vehicle. But if the vehicle just took off without the driver having any control, which is what we do, we just keep hitting trees. And that's what happens to most people until there is this surrender and going, hang on a minute. If I'm a divine expression of source, how can I be faulty?
Mm.
That is a lie. And once you acknowledge that lie and you start to not just surrender to that, but be eternally in awe of who you are and in appreciation of who you are and in appreciation of how you keep circumnavigating all the challenges that the little I seems to need to be overcoming. But when we step aside and then allow this big I to come forward and take the driving, take the wheel, then we come into these places of synchronicity where things fall into place, where all of a sudden the right people come into our lives, the right moments occur, and we call it miracles, but actually it's how we're meant to be all the time. And so I brought up this subject because we're going into a new year soon. And I would love people, when they listen to this, to really sit with their little I and bring it home with love and an incredible appreciation for the amount of stress and the amount of false beliefs that has created stories of not good enough, and bring it home with all the love possible, unconditional, with appreciation for the good, the bad, the indifference by simply one thing, throwing out the belief that it is good or bad, right or wrong, black or white, because none of it is so. And when we can do that and we just can love all of it, like we love children, like we love our pets, and we bring that home and we then surrender in service of not other people. Yes, we do that too much already. In service of the big I. And go, here's the vehicle. I'm ready to go. I've had a service. Where are we going? Let's go on a beautiful road trip. I'm just looking forward to the scenery, and show me the way. And that way is always in service of others. We've got it back to front. We believe that to be validated, to be worthy, we need to be doing for others all the time. Yes, and we do eventually, but it comes after we surrender to service of not the little I service, because we hear this term all the time, particularly in the truther community. It is, from service to self to service to others. But first service to self. But which self? It's the big I. And when we surrender to that divine spark of quantum field consciousness and allow the purpose for the incarnation to be brought forward, then we have everything we need to be of service to everyone else. And that is why I'm bringing up this subject now, because, people do this New Year resolution thing that never works out. Well, I gave those up a long time ago. But we do need to consider 2023 is going to be challenging, because there are going to be a lot more revelations and there are going to be people who are traumatized. And so the little I is going to scream for a lot of people. And it's those of us who are awake that need to step fully into that big I, into that into the wholeness and bring both little I and big I together with the request of working as one, the vehicle and the driver. It's a beautiful feeling.
Yeah, I love this so much. It's so true. And Serena is also loving this. So good to hear from you, Serena. She said, I needed to hear this today. Thank you so much, Yvonne. And I feel very much the same way. And I love these conversations we have together because they are so enlightening, in no other better word. It's really good remembering and reminders. And I want to remind you guys that Ascension Wisdom TV with Yvonne has such a great archive of incredible talks. So if you love this one, you can go back and watch many other great conversations that she's really instigated and initiated. And what I really gather from your sharings, particularly around the big I and the little I, is that the big I is always there and it's like hanging out. It's always supporting us. It's always loving us, holding us, caring for us, guiding us. Yet it's the little I that is often out of alignment with the bigger I, and our task, our job, our responsibility, and our purpose is to align our little I with the big I so that we can have coherence in our state of being. And often the key piece that keeps the little I in a state of dis-ease in the body, or a feeling that is emotionally charged, or something that is not quite, like you said, you get all these students and people who say, I just need to get it out of me, or there's something missing in me, or there's this hole, or there's this void. I don't know what my purpose is. I feel lost, and I feel, I feel like I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. Often because the little I of the story of the self, of who, like the physical little me, I, is playing out this pattern of life that is ultimately driving us towards the resonant alignment and coherence with the big I, through a process of recognizing the root cause of that disassociation, because it's like this little I was started here in alignment, but then it moved away for some reason, and it's driving us to pull it back in towards its centered balance, towards the big I. And often, as you said, like 90, I think you said 90%, you would say, from your experience of people, and I would definitely tend to agree, that there is a large majority of people, including myself, who have been in a place where the little I is stuck in a story of not being good enough, or not being heard, or not being validated, or not having what it takes in order to actually just do what's natural. And part of our kind of just natural orientation to be in alignment with the bigger I. Because like you said, and I loved when you said, in nature, they don't need to be approved, or they don't need to be told that they're good enough, or that it's just thriving in its natural state all the time. And I sense that human beings also have that natural flow towards alignment and thrivality. Yet what I sense could really accelerate the journey towards a connection to something greater and bigger, and connect to that coherence of the big I and the little I, is our awareness and our focused intention to bring in the little I with loving compassion when things are challenging and emotionally triggering, or identifying the emotions that are coming up, such as those lower frequency and vibrations of emotions like fear, or shame, or guilt, or sadness, and to use those emotions, well, not to use them necessarily, but to identify that they're just messages. They're messages from the bigger I to support the little I to come back into alignment, to love those parts of ourselves, to bring them back into centeredness, to create the full alignment of the big I's intention for the little I of our identity, to recognize that there is a bigger picture or story and narrative that's playing out that is beyond the little I's comprehension, especially when it's stuck in its own story and pattern over here that it's, real struggling and having a hard time with. But that the big I sees all of that from above. And kind of like I love the analogy of a book, for example. Like, Yvonne, you wrote the beautiful book that you sent to me, and I've been reading. And the book, it has so many great tools and guidelines and stories and words and chapters and titles. But that little book, would never understand the complexity and the experience and the stories and the narrative and the life journey of the author, of Yvonne. So there is this creation that has come about from the author, and then has created this magnificent piece of work, the book, which is an expression of the author. Yet there is this connection between the two, right? And so in some senses, I can see how the little I, although it may not be able to fully comprehend the scope of the big I, but can recognize its role in the creation, it has such it can have a reverence for, but not totally recognize the scope of the complexity or the diversity that the big I, the bigger picture that it's playing in its life. And so I think, and what I love around what you're speaking to in this kind of analogy of big I and little I is recognizing in our role in the little I that we are also the big I at the same time. We are an expression of the big I. And that's a really empowering realization to have, and not only just to realize it in the moment, go, oh my God, wow, I'm a part of this bigger picture, I'm an expression of the bigger I, but also then to fully and wholly grasp this concept, to live by it every day, especially when something challenging arises and something pisses us off, or something really triggers the emotions to come out and go, why is this happening? But to grasp it in those moments, and to remember that this is a message, and this is an opportunity, this is a learning to build character, build strength and resilience, and remind myself to come into coherence with the bigger I and the little I, and to see that there is a greater unfolding that is occurring for life to grow and life to expand, and I'm a part of that life. And it's a really great analogy and great way to reflect upon these different roles. And I'd be curious to hear from those who are tuning in with us what your feelings are in relation to the big I and the little I, if you have any ideas, because we are ultimately just sharing our hearts and our mind songs on this topic of that big I and little I. And Yvonne, I'd love to hear more from you about the relationship between these two I's.
Well, it's for me, I surrendered. I'm sitting here smiling at you because you bring up so many wonderful things, and I'll address those. The first thing that I really want is that cohesion and the it's the disconnect that we create by the attachment to the identity of the personality over and above the remembrance and the knowingness of the life force that actually is driving us. And so what is occurring for us today is that we're becoming more and more aware that there is a bigger picture. And so the first step is to have an intention and going, I intend to allow the truth for my incarnation to be to be expressed, whatever that is. We always seem to be attached to everything has to have a label and a reason and a purpose. Throw that out the window. Really, there is, this thing about fear of the unknown. I don't know in 2 seconds what's going to happen, right? And we noticed that before we came on because you suddenly fell out altogether, and I'm sitting there looking at myself. And so what do? Do I get mad? I just sit there and go, oh, well, if we're meant to be doing this, guy, get us back on. And so it's giving up all these needing to know and needing to be and needing to have. But I'd like to share a little story about something that has been bugging me, so to speak, in the last week. So I'm so surrendered to my purpose and so focused on my mission and so in service of my big I that I've gone a little bit over the top and been in avoidance, they tell me, avoidance of the basic needs of the maintenance of the little I's life. So, I kept putting things aside that I needed to attend to. And because it's just too mundane for me. I'm too busy. We have this amazing community, and I'm here, and I've got to do, I've got this, and I get off. I get off on, and I'm so addicted to living this state of consciousness that anything that has to do with paying my bills, or I put that as automatic as possible. I don't really want any part of that. Just let that flow. And so when it suddenly stopped flowing and everything started to grind to a halt, and I'm going, what's going on here? I'm living my purpose. That's just going to take too much time for me to do, and because I've got this open connection, I get this laughter. I get laughed at a lot, and it's like, yes, but you're avoiding the little I's, basic foundational needs to live still in this physicality. And I had to sort of stop everything and get down to business and sort out my personal life a little bit. And get out of avoidance mode. So, I did a little bit of overcorrecting the other way. And it is that balance, isn't it? It's that coming together and being in balance. So from that conversation, what I really wanted to come to is that not being fulfilled. I love that word, not being filled fully. So it is very necessary for every human being to recognize that the the big I's purpose to be fulfilled needs the physical expression, needs the little I. It cannot be fulfilled. It cannot fulfill its reason for being here without the little I. Okay, and I say that because I want people to recognize how important they are, how invaluable they are. And we've got to stop looking at ourselves and seeing our value according to what we do. I'm a good person. I don't give a shit. Doesn't matter. I help a lot of people. I don't care. Neither does the big I. It doesn't have these judgments. It doesn't look at our worthiness according to how much, money is in the bank or how many people we've just helped across the road. No, that's not its purpose. What it needs is it needs to have a vehicle to take us to that place of higher consciousness and expansion and the forward moving of life. Now, when we're in that state, all of the other doing things become of a higher state of consciousness. It becomes of a greater kindness, of a greater empathy, of a greater compassion, of a greater love because that is what the big I is all about. That's all it is. It doesn't have that lower vibration. So the little I, it cannot ever be completely happy, be completely fulfilled without that connection of the big I. And when the two come together and they dance life together, that is when we can be healthy of mind, body, and soul. That is when we go into this beautiful symbiotic, you know, movement that is life when it is at its highest. And that is the purpose, and that is what the intention of ascension, as you call it, of moving into a higher state of consciousness, is that realization that one cannot be fulfilled without the other. And this cohesion, this coming together, this interrelationship of the, whatever you want to call it, ego, self, personality, physicality, and the life force that is the big I, that is driving us forward, that is the spark of divine source that is in here. And it is that awareness, becoming aware beyond the Vom, beyond the Shay, and seeing that we need to strive to bring those two together to really have that thriving that you talk about and that nature shows us all the time. And you are finding it difficult now. I'm not going to see my little I might one day have said, well, it must be very boring because he's really finding it hard to stay awake.
Nah, I'm loving it. It's so good.
But you know, let me
I'm trying
just
to like.
put
It's
it. I
really
just
resonating. And
no, though, because I wrote about it this morning. The energies at the moment are so fragmented, and that's something that's another conversation. But it still is. It's relative because you know it's in a. It happens every year. It is the collective is in a state of flux and you know whatever that is. It's chaotic and it's intense and it's so I wrote about that we are all one. We are connected. We are energy beings and we cannot be separate. So when we separate the big I from the little I, we damage ourselves. Okay. When we separate ourselves as the big I, little I together from the rest of the world, we damage ourselves. It's this coming together as one for one that really is what we're all about. And this, so many people are finding the energy so heavy and are finding it difficult to stay awake. To there's a tiredness that it goes to the bones. It's not because we haven't had enough sleep. It is because the energy is changing. Our physiology is attempting to catch up with everything else. We need to rest a lot. So the little I needs a lot of care, and the big I is always there. It's always there. Without it, we can't. We're not breathing, right?
absolutely.
Get
And
you to respond so that you can stay awake.
I was, just taken back by everything that you're sharing because, and just trying to catch my breath. Actually, I'm like, yeah. It's like just remembering, the importance of breathing, and yeah, taking my breath away, Yvonne, with your words and the way that you're able to articulate. Ultimately, what we're speaking to is trying to express the relationship between, our personal lives, the little I, and the bigger I, which is the unseen um, source of creation and intelligence that we're very much connected to and a part of, and often forget that there is any significant relationship between the two. And so I'm catching my breath going, yes, yes, that's right, remember. And yeah, and the way that you were able to express that is quite profound, really. And yeah, I just love, particularly now, like you say, this period being in such like chaos and stress and busyness and urgency and scarcity and like rushed off the feet because there's so much to do and so many people to see and so many places to be and to do all of this, and then just to drop in to remember that it's everything is okay.
Mm.
Everything is mapped out and intentionally created for us to have the experiences that we need to have the strength to be guided by the big eye when the little eye gets a little bit kind of unsure and uncertain and afraid. And um, just for the little eye to remember the big eye is always there ultimately. And I really just appreciate just the opportunity to listen and receive and to hear, and to remind myself, like often when I'm speaking, it's like it's almost like the big eye is speaking to the little eye as the little eye speaks it. It's like, oh yeah, that's right.
That's, and that's very true. But what I also want to alert people to is that we've been told we need to do a lot of the shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
But when we do the shadow work, so to speak, which is looking at ourselves in judgment, we are looking at things that we might not have done as well as we could have had we known better. But the thing about that is, the shadow work is fantastic. The only thing we have to do is to forgive any discrepancies because we didn't know any better. But once we recognize that the little I is not all that we are, see, it's that identity that this is all we are. And until we perfect that, we can't be approved of. We can't be worthy. But it's not all we are, or what we are, ultimately what we were before we came and what we will always be and what we will be when we let go of this role of Von and Shay, is this pure source energy that is an energy of love and expansion. So when we can shine that, okay, so I'll tell you what's just been downloaded. We take all the things that we do not, this is new, all the things that we feel is not good enough, right? In how we behave or what we've done or what we think or all of that stuff we call that isn't enough. If we just take all of that in a little parcel and we just hand it to the big eye, and the big eye will just totally dissolve it into love and dispense it away, and we have nothing more to do. It reminds me of when I was doing my shamanic work in Peru, and that Peruvian shaman have this wonderful thing where they gather all the things that we may not like about ourselves, and they wrap it all, and we get things of nature to represent these things, and they then put it in a big cloth and they wrap it all up, and then they have ceremony to then allow that to be dispersed and no longer have any effect on us. But what my big eye is just telling me to tell people is just visualize that you just take all of the shadow side of yourself, all of the things that you have self-judged, that you've been judged by, that you feel that isn't up to scratch, and just wrap it all up in a big parcel and then offer it to the big eye. And it says, thank you. Now we are clear to be all that we came here to be. You as the vehicle, me as the source energy. Now we can move forward without all of these not good enough thoughts. I can fuel the vehicle, and the vehicle can hum as we move forward, and we travel in unison. So we have to really start looking at ourselves from that perspective as a whole being, not as an ego being that needs to constantly look to be certified by somebody unknown, examined by somebody who doesn't know who you are, doesn't know anything about you. But somehow you have to measure up to their standards. But are they your standards? Is it aligned with your innate, magnificent, creative self expression? Never asked. So we are entering a period where that is now going to be on the forefront, to become more and more of the whole of us. And when we're the whole of us, there is nothing more beautiful. And there never is a question of it's enough, if it's worthy, if it deserves. Because it is the innate, pure expression of this quantum field of intelligence that creates all of life. I'm not big enough to judge that one. Are you?
Certainly not. So good, Yvonne. Thank you so much for making the space and carving out the time to share this powerful message with myself and all of those listening in and tuning in for this, whether it's through a podcast or through YouTube or Earth Heroes TV or a Facebook page. We hope that you guys have found just as much value out of this conversation as I have with Yvonne, who has so much wisdom, so much wealth of, just support through our times, and offers a perspective on life that really enables us to move forward with a lot more grace and a lot more ease with its remembering. So, Yvonne, thank you so much.
And thank you. We've had a great year on this platform of Earth Hero TV, and it's been absolutely wonderful. And I'm very grateful to you for that. And I love our conversations just as much. So I wish you a wonderful festive season. And let's see what 2023 will bring.
I'm excited.
Me too. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Until next year.
Till
Bye-bye.
next time. Bye.